Hey everyone, I'm Clue. Welcome back to some more Flesh and Blood learning. So, I think I'm going to move on from Arachne, and that means Azalea's up next. So the Ranger class, if I magnify. So once per turn action, cost 0, put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. If you do, put the top card of your deck face up into your arsenal. It's an arrow card, gains Dominate until the end of your turn. Go again. So, I think the way I want to sort of tackle this, because we're going to get into heroes that have been around for, quite a few sets. So they've got a few different mechanics that have been built into them or built around them, and there's quite a bit of diversity. So I think I'm going to try and latch onto one sort of idea or concept that they have, and then build the deck for that, and then we'll do like we have been, just play a few trial games. I don't think I'm going to go for a win like I was trying with Arachne. I think, we'll play, I don't know, 5 or 6 games, get a feel for the hero, and then move on, because I do want to cycle through all of them in a reasonable amount of time, so then I can latch onto the hero I like most and actually start, developing the skill sets needed for that specific hero. But yeah, so we're going to try Azalea. The mechanic I want to sort of take the focal point with is this aim counter. So this Sand Scale Great Bow. Once per turn action, pay 1, look at the top card of your deck. You may put an arrow from your hand or the top of your deck face up into your arsenal, go again. I think this is really good because it ties into Azalea's built-in effect. So for instance, put a card from your arsenal on the bottom. If you do, put the top card of your deck. So essentially you can use this bow to check your deck to see if it's an arrow, then put an arrow from your hand into your arsenal, and then you use the arrow, and then with Azalea's effect, you're putting another arrow into your arsenal. So I think if I go with a lot of like cheap arrow cards, I should be able to build a pretty high tempo deck that also, benefits from having these aim counters. What's the secondary? So whenever an arrow is put face up in your arsenal from your deck, put an aim counter on it. So again, that ties back into definitely using Azalea's. Granted, I can just use the Sand Scale or Great Bow to put an arrow card and then sort of luck into one from Azalea. But I think this is going to be a decent thing to build around. So I'm going to get to it. I'm going to build the deck, and then we'll go through it quickly, and then we'll hop into a game. Right, so I actually have no idea how this is going to go. There's actually a lot more cards than what I was expecting. Like 3 pages to sift through, and I have no idea what arrows you want to use or the ratio of arrows to cards. It'll be interesting. Not much to really say about the deck. The majority of it is just high damage, so the majority of arrows all from the red pool, so they have the highest damage, the highest increases. There's a few cards to sort of help us out, like Release the Tension, just things to give slight buffs. I think rather than trying to chain together arrows, I'm trying to go for just heavy hits. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I might just play around for a bit with the practice dummy to see if I can get a feel for how I am meant to play Azalea. Should be interesting. I mean, this hand kind of sums up what I'm trying to do with the deck. So I would use this Blossom of Spring to gain 1. I would then use the Sand Scale Great Bow. I don't want to put Drill Shot into my arsenal, or do I? I was going to use Long Shot, but Drill Shot, if it has a counter, is piercing, so I guess that's kind of better. So they both deal 4, this would deal 5. Anyway, so we'll put it into our arsenal. Gains the aim counter. Oh yeah, so it's that little eye in the middle. Then after that, I can use Seek and Destroy. I can use Poison Tips. I might as well. No, because this is if you have no cards. Yeah, so then I would just attack with Drill Shot for 7. And I've spent 1 resource, I'm doing 7. So, in comparison to, say, the Emperor or Arachne, this just seems a lot more straightforward. I can stick an arrow straight into my arsenal at the end. Probably not Long Shots, because I want an aim counter. And then we can always use Azalea to cycle it back in. The only sort of thing I'm missing is a way to give a lot more of my arrows go again, or arrows that just have go again. So yeah, so this gains no benefit from being face up, so I guess I'd put Endless Arrow just so we could draw. They're attacking, so I might as well defend. Rapid fire until the end of your turn arrows, you control gain go again, so that's actually really good. I think using this, I should be able to combo into something, in which case I want to get rid of my heavy costing arrows. So probably, well, no, they're both arrow attacks, that's fine. We'd block with, say headshot, pass. We could use rapid fire. The end of turn arrows you control. So the only issue is because obviously I'm not starting with reload. Is there? Well, I could use rapid fire and then Azalea's effect, but there's no guarantee that the top card is an arrow. What else do we have? Destroy bullseyes. If you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put an arrow card from your hand face up. So I can use this afterwards to get, say, long shots and then do more damage. And all in all, I'm not really paying for anything unless I want to try and get a 0-cost card, which I guess would be the go. So it'd be something like rapid fire into endless arrow into bullseye braces to put long shot into my arsenal, into using long shot, or into great bow, right? Because I need some way to get endless arrows back into my arsenal. So I'd use the great bow, I'd get rid of remorseless. Headshots, it costs 1, so I don't think I want to. I think I'd rather put endless arrows into our arsenal. Well, I guess it's an extra card, and I can just cycle endless arrows. Plus it's 1 extra 2 damage, so that's decent. So we'll put headshot into our arsenal, and then we can just play it. Pitch endless arrow, and we've already done 21 damage over 2 turns. So I don't know if the deck's always going to go like that, but that seems pretty decent to me. And I still had, you know, cards to block. There's a little bit of disruption in the deck. We also have, what is it, New Horizons. When you have a face-up card in your arsenal, you have additional arsenal zone. Interesting. I wonder if there's a better way to utilize that. I guess the idea would be to end with an arrow face up. That way I could use New Horizons to put another card, and then I start with an extra turn on the next go. And then, what else do I pick? Until the end of the turn, face up cards, play from your arsenal, gain go. Okay, well there you go. So Perch Grapplers is essentially, what was it, Rapid Fire, and this arrow? No, what was it called? Rapid Fire. So it's essentially Rapid Fire, but for 2. Which is the slight issue. I'd almost want to swap Blossom of the Spring into something that gives 3, like Deep Blue. So I could cycle 1 card, get 3, still run red and yellow, but then I could activate, you know, Perch Grapplers and my Sandscale Great Bow all in the same turn and try to combo into something. Is it destroy? It is destroy. Yeah, I might make that tweak, and then I guess we'll try a real game. I don't know, we might dissect it a bit more and we'll hop into real games next time around. Let me tweak the deck a bit. Okay, yeah, so I think we'll spend some more time actually building the deck. And that way I could sort of structure it a bit better. I could do the initial episode for each hero or whatever is centered around gearing up a deck and sort of discovering the mechanics a bit better. Because I definitely have a far better understanding of what I want to build now that I sort of played and felt how the mechanisms work, if you sort of get what I mean, because it's a lot different than just reading and trying to connect dots in your head. So I definitely want to hit this mana base where I can combo out hard in the other game. And I think I am just going to strive for high tempo, because again, those are the types of deck I really like. I either like playing high tempo or mill. I'm not really a control player, so it'd be fun once I get to like the Guardians and everything. But Azalea, Rhina, Benji, the Ninja class, all that will probably appeal to me the most. Okay. So what can we do? Well, first off, I do want to swap out the chest gear. An easier way. I do kind of like the list. I don't need Ranger. Chest gear, dagger. Where is it? That's over here. Yeah, alphabetical it looks like, but side scrolling. So yeah, so if I were to say use Deep Blue, yeah, I can't do it like this because this set automatically hovers. If there was a setting so I could automatically go to the magnifier without having to go to the top, but we'll stick with this view. Okay, so that's gain 1, not good enough. Fist is gain 2. The issue is I can't activate it till I attack. Plus I have to hit, so I can't use it to combo in with the Purge Grapplers. I think, honestly, the Deep Blue is probably going to be my best bet, just because it guarantees I get 3, and it means I can run, you know, cheaper cards, because I only have 4 blue cards. So hitting that mana base to be able to use both Sandscour Great Bow. Weird name. I don't even... Oh, there's 2 dragons. There's a desert and dragons, but like it's all city themed, so it's weird to me. With Dynasty as a set. So yeah, so using that plus the Perch Grapplers, I want 3. And that's either redeck it, so I'm running blue, but I like having high damage, which is obviously the lower end of pitching. So I think I will swap from this instead of 1 just to trigger the bow. I don't mind tossing a card, gaining 3, because then I get 1 card from Well, technically I can get up to 2 cards with the Great Bow. If I have an arrow in my hand, I'd rather leave it there so that I can guarantee using Azalea's effect. Do you have to swap a card? Put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. If you do, you do. Okay, so that's the only issue with that, is you do have to cycle a card. So it means I'm also looking for some cards that put cards in my arsenal, which was something I was avoiding because all of them were put a card face down, and it looked to me like the big gimmick is you always want to have arrows face up. But stuff like this that has reload, if you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put a card from your hand face down. So that'd be a lot better. Means I wouldn't get, say, poison tip on all my arrows, but then I could continue to cycle because I could put a card in and then I could use Azalea's effect. So I'm going to look through, I'll pull out a few, and I won't delete anything because we'll sort of talk about what I perceive as being more beneficial. Right, so I've gone maybe a little bit overboard, 60 cards. There's also one extra bit of equipment. So Honing Hood. Destroy Honing Hood. Return all cards in your arsenal to your hand. Then put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. So reading it for face value, if you don't meet the requirements of the first segment, the second segment should still be able to activate, which would make it really good because it's just an instant put a card in your arsenal. That said, I don't know if the first requirement has to trigger, because normally it says if you do, for instance, if it's a requirement. It's more so if you got a card in your arsenal, it goes back to your hand, and then you can put in more cards. I'm also curious because there's no other way to increase your arsenal slots that I know of, aside from New Horizon. But they're obviously both headgear. Okay, and the other thing to talk about, New Horizon. So while you have a face-up card in your arsenal, like an arrow, you gain an additional arsenal zone. Really good. It synergizes as well with the traps, which I actually didn't realize existed. I thought they were just a new thing they were adding with Outsiders. I didn't realize that they actually had them in Crew. So they're their defense reactions. Pretty simple. All of them cost 0, which is great on a defense reaction because you can just play it instantly. It's in your arsenal also, so even better. Works really well with New Horizon because the idea being you end with an arrow and then you can put a trap in your arsenal for free. You can draw back up to 4. You now have 6 cards and you have a defense reaction for your opponent's turn rather than actually essentially milling your hand to defend. So that's really good. I just obviously don't know if I want to use Honing Hood because if Honing Hood is able to just use its secondary effect, it's really high tempo. And it might be better off. I need to obviously test the two. So I think that's probably what we'll do first is just chuck on Honing Hood and see if I can just activate to put a card in my arsenal. Because that will sort of reshape the deck because I might want to run the traps in that case. So I might not want to run the traps. If I'm using New Horizons, I'll probably keep some of the traps in just as a bit of a defensive element. Other than that, arrow-wise, so there's stuff like Read the Glide Path, Opt 1, which plays into our hero ability. There is a few shots like this, Ridge Rider shots. If it is put into your arsenal face up, Opt 1. Oh, I think I misread that. Then that goes into our Azalea effect. It's not as powerful as I thought. For whatever reason, I thought it was like, I misread it, I guess. It was if it hits, put a card in your arsenal. What else? What else do we have? Take Aim. There's Take Cover, is it? Yeah, so Arcane Rising, and then they... Oh, they're both in Arcane Rising. That's even worse. I have no idea what's the point then. They both have the same thing. They both cost 0, but obviously Take Aim is significantly better. I know Take Cover is a defense reaction, so you can play it on your opponent's turn. But, I mean, you can just throw this out for 2, so it covers the same basis, or you can use it on your turn to defend. Maybe, I guess, because you get the reload on that. I don't know. I think Take Aim is significantly better, so I do have it in. I probably want to cut the early versions. Usually for buff cards, I like having them on yellow, just because you can obviously play them to buff, or you can pitch them for, a decent amount. Pitching it for 1. In that scenario, I'd probably never pitch it. I'd always want to just use it for its buff. The blue version, generally too weak. I don't feel like +1 to anything is substantial. So, in my mind, attacks, I generally pull from red. Buffs, I pull from blue. And then things that have like generic effects that just do like this. Search your deck for a card, put in your arsenal, put something in your arsenal. This card gains go again. Those types of effects, I like going with blue. So things like Captain's Call, which is another thing. I haven't actually pulled any generic cards for this deck. There's a few staples that I think should almost go in every deck just because of how they work. Captain's Call, like I said, because you can either buff or you can use that to chain cards together. I don't think they're necessary. I think there's enough combo potential with Azalea already that you don't need those generic cards. But it might be something interesting to play around once I build a proper classic constructor, because obviously limited at 40 cards. It's a whole different ballpark. Generally speaking, all you really need to look for is, does this card do what this card does, but better? And then you swap them in. Okay, so I do have to cut a few things. So like I said, I do want to get rid of the weaker take aims. Well, not the weaker take aims, but the cheaper take aims, since I will never be pitching them. 3 of a kind, this is another weird one. So until the end of your turn, you may only play cards from your arsenal. Again, this goes back to my lack of understanding. Does you may only play cards from your arsenal mean you can't play, your hero ability or any cards on the field? Like, do they count as playing a card, or do they count as, say, activating ability? If it's activating ability, then it's it's a lot easier to get around, because you can use 3 of a kind and then go into all your equipment. I mean, the best starting hand would probably be something that goes into 3 of a kind, into deep blue, into your weapons, and just trying to combo out as much as you can in that early game. I think I might leave the deck as it is, or I might make a new deck just with 3 of a kind, so I can test it. But yeah, I do want to try Honing Hood, and then I do want to try 3 of a kind. So I think we'll do that quickly, and then we'll cut the deck down to size. Right, so I'm using the open format, so this should work, right? I can click start. It's going to let me enable Smiths. 0 weapons currently equipped. Oh, that's an interesting one. Alright, let's try it. Okay, far better off. We're in the game. Obviously, I've only got 4 cards, so I can't draw, but that's not the mechanics we're testing. So we'll use Honing Hood. Perfect. We can put a card from our arsenal. Cool. And then if I use 3 of a kind, we'll just pitch the other 3 of a kind. We don't draw any cards. Can we still activate our abilities? It looks like we can, which is really good. So that does change things, because it means I probably want to utilize them to go for a really high tempo deck rather than using New Horizons with trap cards, which is also pretty interesting, because it means, aside from the weapon, I'm pretty sure I'm using basic, like common equipment. Anyway, let's trim the deck, go over it, play a few hands, and move on. Right, so this should be it. I might end up tweaking what arrows I am using, but for the most part, I think that's pretty decent. The 1-cost ones are probably the big issue. Other than that, I'm pretty sure the majority of our cards are 0 cost, and it's really just paying the bow cost and equipment costs. There are a few, like 3 of a kind, but they're just to get the ball running. I might just skim through and cut out all the 1-cost cards. Oh no, I like making a 0-cost deck. They seem quite powerful, and there's lots of ways you can tweak it, especially with generics. Anyway, let's hop in and let's play a little bit, just to sort of see how exactly we can combo with different hands. So Seek and Destroy. The next arrow attack this turn gains +3. If it hits at the beginning of the next end phase, they discard all cards in their hand, destroy all cards in their arsenal. I really like this card. It just seems so powerful. And I guess we combo it into Sandscar Great, but I'm pretty sure I just want to pull off the combo. So Immobilizing Shot will keep. Headshot, I think Salvage Shot should be the priority to utilize, since it does recycle. Immobilizing Shot with Seek and Destroy is sort of double dipping, so I don't think that's necessary. So we'll play Deep Blue. Well, we can stick something straight into our arsenal too. I almost kind of want to use Deep Blue to lay up our arrows. Not that we have a way to chain them together either. So I think until that happens, well, actually, because we do have the Perch Grapplers. Okay. Let's just see what we can do. So I'll play Deep Blue. We'll get rid of Immobilizing Shots. Oh no, it has go again. Excuse me. Why? I'm done. Boy, because I can activate an instant with it, because we've got Honing Hood. That was really confusing to me. Okay, so then Perch Grapplers until the end of your turn, face up arrows. So that doesn't combo with Honing Hood, but that's fine. Played from your arsenal, gain go again. And then Bullseye Braces. You may put an arrow card from your hand face up into your arsenal. So this is sort of how we can get the ball running. So we use Perch Grapplers. Us. Would really like a way to draw more though. I think that's the one step that's missing. Because, yeah, no. So this is what's letting me down, is the arrows costing 1. Because even though we can chain them together, we obviously need to pay the costs. I must have had 1 left over. Yeah, from the thing. So anyway, that's doing 6. It triggers the... No, we didn't even use Seek and Destroy. But then I would guess use Azalea or use Honing Hood. Probably Azalea's effect. Excuse me? If you do... Right, because this has the if you do. Interesting. Okay, well then Honing Hood into headshots, play headshots, pitch. I mean, that's not a bad turn, 10 in the first turn, obviously if they had unblocked, but we could have really done a lot more if that just cost 0. So I should be, you know, looking for different things. Honing Hood is a bit tempting to swap back to New Horizons and use trap bases. We'll play with this deck for a bit. I will just cut the high cost arrows down. And then we'll probably try, you know, a few games with a trap sort of defensive style deck, which is a bit slower. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, hope you are. See you next time.